Good afternoon, Britannia and people of Northampton. I hope you are all well and coping with the Labour lunacy. They haven't even been in power for a week, and the impending catastrophe is clearly evident. But more importantly, let's talk about local concerns in Northampton and crime in particular, which has been getting worse in recent years. Here in Kingsthorpe, we have had two or three fatal stabbings just in the last year or so. Police presence is at an all-time low. Shoplifting is going through the roof, and absolutely nothing seems to be done about it. Indeed, all through the election campaign, I was hoping that local media in Northampton would express an interest in local issues as well as national issues because they do merge. Crime is local and national. The NHS is local and national, as is education. But they, to be honest, apart from token gestures, had absolutely no interest whatsoever. And even though I took part in a couple of hustings, uh, a 1 hour debate with four or five candidates, four questions or five, basically leaves time for what? One or two short comments each. It's not a debate. These are serious issues. They are issues that concern everybody locally. People are affected by them, increasingly affected by them. And I do believe that they are serious enough to warrant a debate, uh, individual debate for each topic to actually result in some sort of plan going forward. There is no plan. Now, as you have seen, Northampton is not as far ahead as, say, London, but we have seen the process, which starts off from your traditional discreet shoplifting, people just taking things quietly and sneaking off, to blatant shoplifting, where people don't care even if they've seen and they just walk out. Then the next step is basically gang shoplifting, as we're seeing in London, where you get two or three youngsters walk into shops with bags, intimidating, bordering on threatening security guards who are powerless to do anything, basically just helping themselves and daring anybody to do anything about it and walk out. Although we are close to this with some of the supermarkets where people just fill up a trolley and just walk out and dare the guards to do anything about it. It will only get worse if we do not address this, and it is crucial that we address this head on now. And to start that, we need to twist the police's arm to make sure that we have a police presence again. It is time that the police began to police crime rather than police opinions on Twitter. So something needs to be done. On a local level, I have been trying to take steps in that direction. And before the election, I actually created a Kingsthorpe Community Crime Watch WhatsApp group. That's a mouthful. Anyway, I detailed my plans in a letter with a QR code for the group, and I've been to many of the shopkeepers in Kingsthorpe, explained it to them, spoke to them in person, and gradually they began to join, and they began to share information of incidents and peoples and stills and CCTV and so on, which is a wonderful step. During the course of the election, I didn't go anywhere near any of these shops because I did not want something that I'm doing for the better good to be discredited by appearing to be a ploy for votes. So I waited until after the election had finished, and this week I have begun revisiting the shopkeepers, touching base with them. Um, it's positive because they have now begun to communicate, share information. So I'm seeing the beginning of a anti-crime community here in Kingsthorpe, which is absolutely fantastic. But this is just the beginning. There's a long way to go. And this is not something I am able to do on my own. I do need a loud voice, and a loud voice means many voices. So I need your help to make this happen. For the time being, I'm going to continue trying to encourage people to join, support the cause. And then when we do get a visit from the police at a local council meeting, when our Kingsthorpe Parish Council convenes, they do come occasionally and give us an update. Then I will present them with this and I will formally request a public meeting to discuss crime in Kingsthorpe. And that is when I will require a lot of support, because I want the police to see that this is not just one person making a fuss, but these are lots of people who are all suffering because of the crime, and people collectively wanting something done about it. We must address this because it just gets worse and worse. And the next step from almost, we've moved from shoplifting to bordering on burglary, then it will be aggravated burglary or armed robbery. If people have a weapon with them or even a knife, it's armed robbery. What will be the next step? Will the next step be people being so brazen that they will literally just walk into people's houses, kick their door down, and just demand money or whatever it is from them, or actually hurt the people in their own homes? We cannot take this lightly. We need to address crime head on, and we must do something about it. We need a police presence. We need people to have respect for the law. And many young people, not all, and it's not all young people, they are different ages. I shouldn't use the term young people. Many of these criminals do not have respect for the law. So we need the police to command respect, to assert their authority, and to assert it fairly. They must not tiptoe around people because of anything to do with political correctness. A criminal is a criminal is a criminal, no matter what their background, where they're from. That is how it should be. I don't know how policing will go under the duration of the Labour lunacy. I'm not really certain. I am in favour of stop and search. I believe that police get a gut feeling for these sorts of things. People who work in a certain industry begin to have instinctively know what's going on. Shopkeepers instinctively know who they need to keep an eye out for, or who they need to beware of because they could be violent, just as a pub landlord instinctively knows who could be potentially a troublemaker, and they invariably, a good pub landlord knows how to intervene and diffuse situations. So it is the same with police, but how can they instinctively begin to know the community and know who is a potential threat or a potential criminal or an active criminal if they're never engage with the community? They must get to know the community, and they must be back. The same police officers need to be out and about in the same area consistently, so that they get a feel for it, so that they know who they need to keep an eye out for and who they don't. Then they will be far better equipped to make a spot decision, to decide to stop and search one or two or three people or more who are together. And on following that, we need to have severe penalties for anybody caught with a knife or a weapon. We cannot allow young people to be wandering around with knives, because knife crime is getting out of hand. And the only way to protect the general population and protect some of these people from themselves, because I would argue that not all perpetrators of knife crime set out to be a criminal guilty of a knife crime. They may very well be reacting to something else that has happened, and the next thing, something has happened, somebody's dead, and somebody's life is ruined because they're going to spend the best years of their life in prison. All of these lives ruined, and what can we do to prevent it? Good afternoon, Dave. Thank you for joining me. Not sure who's about this time of day, but I do have a very busy day, so I thought I would cover this now. So, without literally waffling on about the same thing constantly, um, please get in touch if you are in the Kingsthorpe area, so that I can add you to the WhatsApp group. If you run a business in and around Kingsthorpe and you'd like to join the group, please let me know. I'm happy to do all the legwork for this, because this is important, and ultimately it's the reason that I wanted to be a local councillor, so that I can do things for the community. And there are issues that are close to my heart or that I feel passionate about. Crime is one of them, healthcare is another, education is another, and homelessness is another. What can I do as an individual councillor? Very little, to be honest. But that doesn't mean that I can't champion the people, and hopefully collectively things change when lots of people are fighting for the same thing. So this is crucially important. We need to act on this now, and we must do everything that we can to address crime, because it has exploded, and if we do not do anything about it, it will get significantly worse. And everyone could be affected by this. Everyone. Did you see Tony Blair has raised his head, calling for the sick and disabled to be kicked off PIP, and also for us all to be microchipped for digital IDs? I'm afraid so. He just will not go away. He just will not go away. It has been less than a week, and the what I've seen so far has been terrifying, and I believe that anybody who's been watching closely, who's aware of what's happened in the past, would also be terrified. We are now seeing a fusion of the worst of Blair, the worst of Corbyn, manifested in a puppet who actually has no backbone, no opinion, no morals, and no love of the country that he is governing. In his own words, he prefers Davos to Westminster. How can anybody say those words and have any credibility as prime minister of this wonderful country? It is a hard position. Of course it is, because the minute you are prime minister, then you are the target. Full stop. 24/7. There's always somebody at you. But it is the greatest responsibility, and it should be a privilege to take on that responsibility. And anybody who does take that responsibility on should be without doubt loyal to king and country first and foremost, above and beyond everything else. Can anyone really say that this guy actually has his loyalty to a strong international, sovereign, independent United Kingdom? I think we know the answer to that. He's just going to literally sell us out to satisfy, follow the instructions, or as per the instructions of his globalist paymasters. And we have seen it with some of the decisions he's made already. They have already announced that they plan to resurrect some of Corbyn's ideas with regards to housing. Now, these are policies of envy. They're not policies that will benefit this country in any way, shape, or form. The number of high net worth individuals leaving this country are at an all-time high. And if they think that they are going to raise lots of money from high net worth individuals and non DOMs, they have another thing coming, because no matter what they say, the vast majority of these people will just move elsewhere. There are many places around the world now that have come a long way, and they do not punish people for making money, because income tax is not the only way that revenue falls into the government's hands. We have VAT, we have all sorts of other taxes. So having people who generate money generates revenue for the government, as well as generating revenue for other businesses, and in turn generating or creating jobs. So income tax is not the be all and end all for high net worth individuals. Um, all they will do is simply move most of what they do overseas. Dyson has already um, Dyson has already made 1,000 workers redundant, I believe. There'll be more to follow. And as I said, we are now a lot not far off China in terms of millionaires or people worth over 1 million leaving this country. And that will be catastrophic, because that will mean that they will need to take more and more and more from less and less. And that's when you get into the downward socialist spiral. And to coin the words of the famous words of the of the lady, uh, the trouble with spending other people's money is that you eventually run out. He needs to be in jail for war crimes, don't they all? Astama is definitely a traitor. And unfortunately, they are uh, basically the the toxic cabinet. They are all based on resentment and envy and toxicity, not seen for many years. Blair's cabinet was made up of treachery and deceit. This one is made up of ignorance, resentment, envy, and just a basic, festering, facetious uh, uh, resentment for our country, our culture, and everything about it. How on earth is our Foreign Secretary going to go and represent this country when he has spoken so badly about so many world leaders? He is not fit to be Foreign Secretary. Our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is on the record expressing her resentment for independent schools, expressing her beliefs on rent caps, for example. It is not the Chancellor's position to be meddling in a free market economy. And the evidence does prove that where rent caps are imposed, it has a catastrophic effect on the rental market. And if they believe that hounding out hardworking people who have properties that they rent out will benefit society, it will not. All it will do is punish a certain part of that society. So they are effectively making people suffer, private landlords, because this administration, the one before, and the one before that all failed to have an effective long term housing policy. And why on earth these people believe, well, Angela Rayner in particular, that they are just going to pick somewhere on the map and build one or two cities the size of Milton Keynes on our greenbelt, losing yet more of our farmland. How much farmland are we going to lose? What are we going to live on? We produce less than 50% of our food now, and the treacherous Ed Miliband is pushing through his obsession with net zero and more onshore wind farms, yet more farmland being set aside for wind farms, plus more building on Greenbelt. Why are we allowing this? We must not, every one of you, wherever you are in the country, must rally together and petition to stop any more building on Greenbelt land. There is capacity for 2 million homes in the UK on brownfield sites alone. They should be built. No more building on Greenbelt land. It is our countryside. It is our farmland. It supplies our food. It gives us life. There are over 670,000 empty homes through the UK. How about offering tax incentives to if inspire a workforce, a British army of property renovators to go out and renovate these properties and bring them back into use? And then how about stopping the exponential demand for property by actually doing your job as a government and protecting our borders, our country, and our citizens? Because you have failed, the previous administration failed, and the one before that. In fact, it was Blair and 1997 that was the start of the rot. It all goes back to 1997. Prior to that, we had controllable net migration and everything was running well. And in fact, in 1997, Tony Blair actually inherited a country that was in fantastic financial shape, that was in good shape politically, that was in good shape with regards to migration. We were controlling it with what were the needs of the country. And that was after several years, 7 or 8 years of John Major, who actually did get this country back on its feet. But unfortunately, Tony Blair stepped in and took the credit for it, benefited from it, and set out to destroy it. He then took this country to war in Iraq, and that was the first domino in destabilizing the whole of the Middle East and beyond, and the rest is history, as you know. Every time I see Starmer on YouTube, I switch off. I can't stand the bloke. He's a monotone puppet and boring. I'm afraid he is. And he actually is incapable of giving a coherent answer to anything. Have you heard these people mention homelessness? Have you mentioned heard these people mention um, addressing the urgent, increasingly urgent need for training and retraining, education and re-education, not just of our young, but of our existing workforce, who are going to be increasingly finding themselves redundant because AI is going to destroy millions of jobs globally over the next 5 to 10 years in very, very large numbers. It is almost a matter of national urgency that we make education and re-education and retraining for adults as well as for young people as soon as possible. We need to actually simplify the minefield of adult education, to have clear indications of what courses have academic value and what courses do not. The ones that just come under CPD level, this, that, and the other, which literally means nothing. It is just box ticking for companies. We've sent our employees on 1 or 2 days continual professional development in making coffee. And we are a nice, ethical, lovely company, blah, 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 tick. That's it. Qualification has no academic value whatsoever. It should be made clear that these courses have no academic value, and everything else should be simplified so that people in all walks of life, at all ages, could literally walk into walk into a career guidance, whatever you want to call it, center, and be able to simply um, be guided into what is available for them to do, to train for. There are many things out there that you could train for in days or even weeks or a few months that could make a significant difference to your employability and your earning factor. We need to help people to lift themselves out of national minimum pay, because if people are on national minimum pay, after 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, we must raise the question: who is to blame? The people or the government and our leadership for not helping them to lift themselves out of it? Is there really any argument that somebody would willingly want to remain on national minimum pay if there were a simple process to assist them, hold their hand, guide them, advise them to take this course that would suit them or that course that would suit them, where they can go up by £1 or £2 an hour, £4 or £5 an hour, £10 or £15 an hour, so that after 5 or 10 years, these people have lifted themselves out of poverty with our help as a society. There is absolutely no interest in that whatsoever. There's just interest in gender ideology, interest in spiteful policies purely designed to reject any efforts that the previous government had made, whether it's about immigration and cancelling Rwanda, or anything like that. And that should demonstrate clearly that our country is not being led by a statesman. It is being led by somebody who is not capable to lead this country, and neither are any members of his cabinet. We are, I'm sorry to say, in grave danger. And the first step we need to take is crime, because I can see social unrest growing exponentially over the next year or two. And we all need to work together to protect ourselves and our communities and our young people, as well as our old and our vulnerable. Um, at this point, we need to isolate our focus on what we can do, what is important, and in my opinion, crime is the first one, because I fear that it will explode and it will grow out of control. And I am sorry to say that we also have an increasing element in our country of people who have no love for this country, no love for our society, no respect for our citizens, no respect for women, and no respect for young people, girls in particular, who are often targeted. As was said recently by one newsreader, uh, as a blonde woman, there are streets in London that she cannot walk from one end to the other without being harassed. And nobody's kicking up about it in case they offend. Is this where we have got to? Is this what we accept as our society, that we reach a point where we tolerate the abuse, the assault, the indecent assault, the grooming, the raping, the violent attacks against women? Is that the society that we are comfortable to be living in? But we're more concerned about sodding pronouns. Personally, I believe my priorities are right. And I actually believe that the priorities of most of you are right. The problem is this: that these twisted, perverted globalists who are intent on destroying our society have somehow managed to engineer a situation where they have convinced you, the majority, that you are the minority, and engineered situations because of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, because of positive discrimination, because any contradiction to the narrative is always met with hostility and any number of labels. The fact that people could lose their job, lose their bank account, people have been threatened directly or indirectly into accepting this. The decision we need to make is, are we going to accept this, or are we going to fight back against it? This is the first question that all of us must ask. And depending on the answer, then if it is the answer, which I believe it will be, we must act. We have an obligation to ourselves. We have an obligation to the old and the vulnerable. But more importantly, or just as importantly, we have an obligation to our young people who are being manipulated, brainwashed, abused, weaponized, and disenfranchised disconnected from life, and made to feel that there is no hope because they are being used as servants of the globalists. And we must go out of our way to protect them. I'm worried about the amount of HMOs in my part of Abington. Parking on streets off Abington Avenue are a nightmare. Also in the evening with noise, cars revving, and burglary off the scale. Yeah, I do understand. Obviously, I'm in Kingsthorpe, but Northampton, all of Northampton, is my hometown. And to be honest, I would be happy to do whatever I can to support any initiatives, any fight to help to cut crime in Northampton. Please feel free to get in touch with me anytime. As I said, there's very little I can do as an individual, but what I am prepared to do is I'm prepared to reach out to you online, face to face, to actually bring people together to become a strong collective voice to fight back against all of this, because we have to. There are more of us than there is of them, and if Blair wants to stick a chip in me, it will be over my dead body. I completely agree. Cannot believe government is releasing head of grooming gang after not serving all his sentence. He should be deported. I completely agree. As I said, I believe that the shift in this country's tolerance of crimes against women and young girls, the targeting of women and young girls, there should be, without question, zero tolerance. If we as a society accept people from cultures that are alien to ours targeting women, targeting young girls, and this is not just happening randomly here or there. Just because the media hides it does not mean it's not happening. This is a concerted national and international agenda to destroy our culture and our society. And if anybody's going to give me a label for that, bring it on. That's why I'm here. Go for it. Because ultimately, we are defined by how we respect our law and order and how we protect those who need to be protected. And at this moment in time, we need to protect people, the victims of crime. We need to protect women from the increasing abuse, because after 15 decades of fighting for their rights to be equal to everybody else, I believe over the last 5 or 10 years that the women's movement in general has regressed, and that is something that our entire nation should not just address but acknowledge in shame. And we must act on this We must not tolerate it, and we must protect our young people. They are being brainwashed and manipulated en masse, in person, in schools, and online. And we need to act, and we need to act quickly. Um, do you think Starmer should publish list of offences of those released? No names, just offences. Yes. Is it? Uh, does it really need much thought as to why they do not publish offences by demographic, by anything of that sort? You only need to look at the data that was released by Denmark to get an idea why this country and many other European countries do not release this kind of data, and why anybody who treads on the toes of the globalists is instantly attacked, lied about, bullied, threatened, picked on. And sadly, now, thanks to those who perhaps have fallen for the narrative or simply are not aware how dangerous these people are, we have their favourites in. We have the favourites of the media, who many of which couldn't contain their excitement when the election was called. That is so shameful, but that is something that will come back to haunt them, because people like myself will remind the public about these people in the future. And why is it that these people are so determined to push for this open border globalism and putting these people before us, which they do? Or, as always, you need to follow the money. When I grew up in South London, if it was known you was a rapist or a nonce, you would get served up and would not be able to walk the streets. But now it seems to be the norm. I'm glad I moved out, but I'm afraid that's spreading to I'm afraid now it's being accepted as the norm everywhere. The amount of crimes that I'm seeing, sexual and indecent crimes, is incredible, and the vast majority are never ever reported on mainstream media. Um, Unfortunately, anybody who does try to make, who does get a voice that is too loud with this information, will be targeted in a serious manner. And that does put me in a dilemma, because I want to actually show you their faces, tell you what they've done, who they are, and where they are, because looking at the info that comes my way on a daily basis, it turns my stomach. Labour Jess was told to play down being heckled by Muslim men, I think. Yes. Well, she's not the only one. I've actually forgotten his name. South Leicester, uh, the MP, outgoing MP for South Leicester, had tremendous threats and bullying through his campaign. Now, he has spoken out about it, but I shall be watching, because I expect the same, that behind the scenes he will be told to tone it down. But I really don't think they realise what they are dealing with. They are feeding the snake. So, on that note, as I said, if you're in Northampton, please feel free to get in touch. It would be nice to communicate. What I would like to do is to take what I'm doing now, and at a later date, I'd like to arrange a public meeting. It's not political. Don't care who you voted for. Don't care what your aspirations are politically, what your preferences are. This is about crime, and crime should not be politicized. I would be happy to reach out to people who are, uh, who are members, supporters, candidates of the other parties, um, to actually collaborate, and I'll be doing that in the future. I would like to arrange public meetings. I would like to consult with people. I would like to brainstorm this, and I would like a collective effort to ensure that our streets are policed, that our crime is punished, and that people begin to realize that they will not be able to get away with continued crime, and that crime in Northampton will not be accepted. Are you going live tonight? Depends. I haven't got anything scheduled, but I may do. Depends on how busy my day is. After this, I've got a lot on non-stop, but more than likely, I will do it at some point. But what I shall try and do now is, rather than schedule it too far in advance, I'll probably just schedule it beforehand so that I can fit going in live whenever I have some time, because there's just so much to talk about and so much to do. So on that note, um, we'll see what I'll see what else is happening through the day. I'll update you on what I'm doing with regards to crime. If you'd like to join my WhatsApp chat, please message. I can even send you the QR code so that you can invite people, your local shopkeepers, etc., to join the group. As I said, I did create the group for Kingsthorpe. I'm happy to collaborate with others so that we can create one for, say, Abington and one for, say, Dusson and so on. I don't think they should be covered too much of an area because then they become irrelevant. So the Kingsthorpe one should be focused on crime within Kingsthorpe and so on. But perhaps further down the line, there could be a way to a way to unify the groups with an additional group or something like that, just for information or collaboration. But we need to do something, and this is a starting point. Uh, maybe. I mean, he doesn't do too much of that. I do like Maya. I met him on St George's Day in Whitehall. That was the day when there was all these hooligans running around. Absolute bull. I'll tell you the only thing that happened on that day. There was one pub somewhere along Whitehall that had lots of people supporting St George's Day doing nothing wrong. And the police, with a reporter conveniently being in the right spot to get footage, basically stormed the place and provoked a reaction. And even that wasn't anything to speak of. And I believe there's going to be another rally sometime this month. And we know how the media portrays these things, and we know where the media stand on these things. But yes, it would be lovely to catch up with him and discuss these issues at some point. You never know in the future, but to be honest, at this point, right now, I'm focusing on the issues I discuss and the people in Northampton. So hopefully, by doing that and targeting my efforts, perhaps I can uh, actually achieve something somehow in some way. Yes, that's it. The 27th. So thank you very much. Um, no one in particular. Now I've forgotten. Was it you that said that your comments had been deleted? Because they haven't. I noticed sometimes the top chat relay doesn't play, and I don't understand why. I did check in general comments, not to the chat, and there was a few that were held for review automatically, which I hadn't seen, and I approved all of those. To be honest, unless it's foul language which is offensive, I don't delete anything. to be honest, even if it's a troll, it's quite nice. I'm flattered that somebody would go to the trouble to hate me and bother me online. I take it as a compliment, and I do miss my trolls when they're not around. They must be busy at the moment, or perhaps I'm not. Okay, all right. No, I forgot who it was. I'm so sorry. But yes, I do. I do miss the trolls, but perhaps um, they were disincentivized because I was actually enjoying their abuse rather than being offended by it. Uh, but anyway, that's all for now. If you're watching, please press like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Um, okay, to everyone, thank you for joining me, and those who watch this at a later date, thank you for watching. I am open to all suggestions about anything to do with this topic. I really want to address crime here in not just in Kingsthorpe, but in Northampton. This is not my specialty. I don't have a police background. I don't even know where to start. The only thing that I can do is that I see as a starting point is to give people a platform to collaborate, share information about people, perhaps still images and so on, so that I can put it all together, and then I will have some data to throw at the police and say, you need to address this now. The people want you to address this. Only foul language I use is chicken. Blue face, blue smiling. Yeah. Catch you later. Enjoy your day. You too, sir. Bye, Anthony. Bye bye, chat. And goodbye, all. See you later on. Thank you. Bye bye.